This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
And welcome to the OI podcast, the Otago Institute podcast, conversations with experts from the worlds of arts, sciences and Mātauranga Māori. Brought to you by the Otago Institute, the Otago branch of the Royal Society for Arts and Sciences. And I was looking up on papers past, which Morag last week said we should have a look at because it's just there, and it really is just there. Just type papers past into Google and you will come up with it, and you can type any keywords you like. And anyway, I typed in Otago Institute and I got all the original discussions in the Otago Witness and the Evening Star and the Otago Daily Times about the group of old white men, obviously, probably rich old white men who are sitting around deciding to form the Otago Institute way back in 1869 in July. And yeah, there was it's hilarious reading them. It's much better than reading the newspaper these days because they virtually typed out that obviously the reporter was there at the meeting, and they typed out all of the conversation, and then in brackets, after someone's little blurb that they've spoken, there's in brackets it goes, "Here, here." You just really feel like you're there in the room with all these fervent, yes, let's do it. And the whole idea was really just that they wanted free, encouraging knowledge and learning and knowledge and learning about everything. Originally, it sort of was around philosophy. Oh my goodness, my tongue has got completely tied. Sorry, philosophy. But they kind of include everything in it. And there was the first set was a couple of really famous, well, now famous botanists that were there, and they were talking about, the ferns were disappearing up the gullies around Dunedin, and they thought, that would be a good place to study. And they had very concrete ideas about where they wanted the studies to go. And some of them were around geology and mining, because gold was very keen on everybody's minds back then. But yeah, there was quite a lot of interesting things about and about the society and how they wanted it. And I guess they were kind of thinking, let's have a more equitable society. And a lot of Scots were keen on education, and they were very keen on all children, no matter if they were neglected, or there was one reference to even if the children had been born out of brothels, they ought to have the chance to be educated. So everyone had to be educated. Anyway, it was quite interesting reading, and I thought, it's very interesting. See, and that totally engrossed me for all evening, listening to these old reports of how everybody was talking back then. Anyway, I should say, for those of you who are new to the podcast, I'm Dr Barb, a quantitative ecologist with a background in modelling, climate change, biodiversity conservation, prioritisation and psychom, and a PhD in botany from Ōtākau Whakaihu Waka, the University of Otago. We hope you enjoy a mix of conversations with experts in as wide a range of subjects as we can find from the worlds of arts, sciences and Mātauranga Māori. And that is in keeping with those early ideas right from the very first meeting. They wanted to be interdisciplinary, and they wanted to keep it as wide as possible. And they actually said when they were forming their constitution, they didn't want to limit the things because they didn't know yet where the sciences and the arts might go in the future. How prescient that is. Now, today we are very lucky to have in the studio with me here to talk, and for your listening pleasure, people out there, Dr Zac McIvor. Have I said that right, Zac?
Yeah, well enough. I think it's a nice word to say, actually. Dr Zac McIvor, yeah.
So it's like MacGyver, like the old Richard Dean Anderson MacGyver,
yeah.
Fame of MacGyver and then Stargate, but
yeah, unfortunately I didn't grow up on MacGyver, but throughout my whole life I've been scarred with experiences saying,
MacGyver was fantastic. I mean, he was very anti-guns, but he could make anything and do anything out of anything.
Yeah, something I'm always trying to live up to.
Yeah, shoelaces and a bit of chewing gum. You can fix anything, blow anything up. Anyway, we're talking here not about MacGyver, but about archaeology in general, and then a little bit about community archaeology, which is kind of your specialist field, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, first of all, we'll just go back to yourself. How did you get to where you are? You're a senior lecturer here at the university?
Yeah, so I'm a senior lecturer at in the archaeology program at the University of Otago. I started off my studies up at the University of Auckland.
Right. And you saw the light and you've come south?
Yeah, eventually. I spent a fair amount of time since now and then. But Yeah, it started off up in Auckland.
So you did a BA up there in anthropology?
Bachelor of Arts, specialising in archaeology and ancient history, which was actually my original
ancient
path.
history. So the difference there is history's written stuff, right?
That's one definition, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, so ancient history in that context is kind of like classics. It's like looking at mainly European, Middle Eastern ancient history, so Roman, Greek, Egyptian stuff.
Right. So we're thinking sort of hieroglyphs and more along the Stargate line rather than...
Stargate.
You don't know Stargate either.
I mean, no, I grew up on a little bit of Stargate.
And the basic idea of Stargate is there's these like aliens who basically took ancient Egyptians and placed them on other planets so they could use them as their parasitic hosts. Anyway, all the other planets end up speaking some sort of language that's a derivative of ancient Egyptian, and that's why they have Dr. Jackson there with them.
Yeah, so I mean,
I thought you would be well up on this.
there's an overlap in the word Egypt, but not so much. But yeah, so I mean, in that case, ancient history in that context, we're looking at
so we're thinking
written histories around those societies,
right? But so we're thinking like BC 3000, something like that. When are we thinking?
Yeah, for ancient Egypt, and then Greek, Rome goes
right up to sort of 400 this side of the
AD. Depending on where you want to call off the end of the fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah.
I'm just listening at the moment. I'm listening to. It's something like boring stories to go to bed with, boring histories. And it's like, it's this weird podcast that's designed to make people go to sleep.
So they have a good narrator, like Matthew McConaughey or something like that.
It's not Matthew McConaughey. Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? No, anyway, but what I find is I think that the design is that it's boring because it's really detailed about them. So the podcast, each episode is like 4 hours long, and you just put it on and you go to sleep. But I get hooked on it because it's so detailed about all the little things. Anyway, the one I'm listening to at the moment is actually about the fall of the Roman Empire. So
I don't think that would help me go to sleep either.
It's like, sorry, carry on.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So that was your BA.
Yeah, so my minor is in ancient history. That's kind of like one of the things that got me into archaeology, actually. From a pretty young age, as young as 5, I was really interested in ancient Rome, ancient Egypt, and I kind of always wanted to be an archaeologist.
Right.
Intending to go over to Europe and work over there, probably.
Because it's a little bit difficult from New Zealand, surely, to study ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, Greek.
I mean, there's whole programs that study them. There is like classics and ancient history here.
Yeah, but where do you do field work?
Well,
you can't do field work for that here, right?
If you want to do the archaeological component, then you'd need to go and work over there. So
yeah, and there's no like field camp that goes from Auckland University for the summer, is there?
There are researchers who do.
Yeah, researchers, but are there like undergrad field camps? No.
Field schools? No, not so much.
Yeah,
not out of our programs. But there are research projects, and some students do get opportunities to go over there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anyway, we don't want to talk about Auckland. So then you.
That's also here too. I was talking about Otago.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about Auckland. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah, and then I started studying, and then realised all of the ancient history stuff is mainly it's almost like English literature. You're studying and trying to understand the context of all this writing, and I was actually. Realised I was more interested in not only the tangible stuff, the stuff that people leave behind.
Yeah.
But then I also felt like all of this ancient European history felt quite remote to me and my identity, and I discovered there's a whole world of New Zealand archaeology.
Yeah.
It felt much more relevant to me, and
that's fair enough, really, isn't it? And it's funny because it's that Western archaeology is a bit of a gateway into it. Yeah. In a way, because there's so much more information about it because it's so well, and particularly when we were younger.
Yeah.
There was just so much information, and there's those books about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a massive gap. Many other countries, in Europe and many other parts of the world they teach archaeology and a lot of local histories in high schools, and there's lots more information publicly available for people to consume that information and get inspired and then follow pathways into local archaeology and local histories. Yeah. But there's very few opportunities to learn about New Zealand archaeology in high schools and
I
etc.
think so as well. I mean, surely things have changed since I was at high school, but I remember when I was at high school, we had social studies, which is the only part where anthropology or archaeology might have come in. And we did a whole term studying about Palau, little island in the middle of the Pacific. And I was like, yeah, okay, but kind of where's the relevance to anything?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like this one random island that's got really nothing to do with. And I mean, it's not that I'm against studying other places or even, random islands in the Pacific, and definitely nothing against Palau in particular, but it just seemed like, surely first we could do a little bit about New Zealand and find out, like, it seems like, teach about here first and then teach about other places.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe there was a connection for the teacher or something
Who
like that.
knows? It's just random. I remember at the time I protested. I didn't go to school quite a lot there too.
I mean, I certainly advocate for, studying archaeology and history about Aotearoa, but also in the context of the broader Pacific, I think that's really important as well. Yeah,
no, it is. And, I'm being a bit flippant about Palau, but just kind of overstating things to make a point, which is like I'm wont to do. But anyway, it's Friday afternoon and we can all just kick back and relax. We're going to go for a cocktail after this.
That sounds nice.
Anyway, so coming back to it, so you did your BA in Auckland and then...
Yeah, right. Did my honours, which is like fourth year.
Yeah.
And then right through to my masters.
All at Auckland?
All at Auckland, all in one go, straight out of high school. So I was pretty keen.
And you're New Zealand born and bred?
Yeah, grew up in Auckland.
Yeah.
And by that point, that's 5 years of study. I was pretty keen to go out into the world and get some work, get some money. And so I eventually after my masters, I worked for a while as an archaeological consultant.
Oh, right.
In cultural resource management context. So that's like if, someone's building a new subdivision or a new road.
You need to check in case there's any Greek ruins underneath there.
Yeah, if you're looking for Greek ruins, you'll be looking for the rest of your life without success, unfortunately.
But presumably there's transferable skills there, right?
So, I mean...
Like the basic principles of archaeology are kind of transferable across everything. Like newer stuff is at the top, older stuff is at the bottom, unless someone's dug a post hole and moved it around or an animal's burrowed through or whatever. But
I should clarify that although my minor was in ancient history, like all my training was in New Zealand archaeology as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so I by no means have much experience or expertise in Greek or Roman archaeology.
Yes, okay. Let's just clarify. It's good to clarify that one. I did tell you right at the start, whenever I go off on a tangent, stop me and clarify me. So good job there.
I'll try and keep up. But but to answer your question, absolutely. A lot of these techniques and theories that we apply in one place can be applied to many other places too.
Yeah. And what sort of prerequisites would you be, if you're at high school and you're thinking, I love Indiana Jones, all that kind of diving around, the whip, the hat.
Yeah.
What sort of subjects are you looking at there? I mean, there aren't prerequisites. You can basically come from any high school kind of background.
I'm kind of speaking out of my knowledge here because I don't really teach at university entrance levels, but I can say that once you have university entrance, you can study. It's like an arts degree.
Yeah, so it's just an arts degree, and and I guess the classics, English, science, maths are always good to go anywhere with. Yeah, right?
I mean the thing,
history, geography is not a bad call.
Absolutely, that's the cool thing. I mean, I think one of the cool things of all the hundreds of cool things about archaeology is one of them is that you can relate it to anything.
Yeah.
If you are interested in history, you can study archaeology alongside history. If you're a computer science nerd and you're into gaming, you can explore lots of new digital techniques to prospect for archaeological sites.
That's one I hadn't thought of actually.
Do reconstructions of archaeological sites.
And it's interesting because anthropology is clearly arts.
Yeah.
But archaeology, I would say, is pretty clearly sciences. So it's kind of a nice... Yeah. It's kind of in the middle there all the way. A bit like geography, like you've got that kind of... It's not really one or the other. And I think that I always advocate on the show and everywhere in my general life that anyone who's doing a science degree should throw in a couple of humanities papers,
absolutely.
and vice versa.
Especially archaeology ones.
Yeah. And and at the end of the day, it's learning about us, humans, as a species in various different places and communities through time.
Yep.
And that's always going to be relevant because it's an interesting thing to learn about how people live in other places, in other times, in other situations, and the things that they do the same and how they came to, I just find that whole situation fascinating, really.
Yeah, it's just understanding like the like a more holistic, and it's a more holistic. It provides you with a more holistic understanding of like the human condition.
Yeah.
And so whatever you're doing, that's only going to add to your understanding of the world and how we fit together and where we come from. So I think that's really important. But yeah, archaeology you can lean either way. You can lean more into the sciences and look at archaeological techniques and scientific techniques, but you can also lean into anthropology and sociology and a lot of other sort of theories and how we understand human behaviour and adaptation to the environment and interaction with one another.
Yeah, because there's all those cool sort of sub-disciplines like marine archaeology. There's a lot of science in that. Like it's kind of and all that like recreating the environment and the paleontology and there's a whole heap of really like hardcore sciences. Yeah. That are also part of that broader archaeology, anthropology, because it's anything that you want to know about now and how we live today and how the planet is and all the things in the planet, you can also ask questions about the same things in the past.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I mean, and like the definition of archaeology is incredibly broad when you think about it. I mean, and if someone's listening and still trying to think, what is archaeology?
Yeah, go on, give us a proper definition.
Yeah, I mean, just very broadly, you can think of we talked about ancient Egypt, the pyramids, temples, you might think of Machu Picchu, all of these famous World Heritage UNESCO sites. These are all forms of archaeological sites or archaeological places. And broadly, we're basically studying the material remains that people leave behind in the past, and we do that to understand more about those people. Yeah.
So the difference there is anthropology is studying the people themselves.
Yeah. So
the society.
Yeah. So sometimes archaeology is thought about as a subdiscipline within anthropology, right? And then social anthropology is a subdiscipline of that broader thing. Right. Okay. So that they kind of come from the same school of thought, right? Depending on the whakapapa you look at. Yeah. So generally social anthropology is more you're looking at contemporary societies generally. You can do like historical social anthropology as well. But I think one of the main methods of social anthropology is ethnography. So you're actually observing and making and doing.
And then you get the whole difficulty of how much is the observer impacting the.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is the same if you're studying zoology, right? Yep. Like how much are you there affecting the meerkats? Like if they're using you to stand on top of your head to see further, you're having an effect on that community of meerkats. And even more so, I imagine, when you're studying society. It's very difficult to study something and not influence in a way.
Yeah, we always bring our own biases to whatever sort of area of inquiry, and that's certainly true for archaeology as well. Yeah, depending on your upbringing, your background, your subdiscipline.
And I think that's something that you can see over time when you sort of go back and study old archaeology, like the writings. Not old archaeology sounds weird, but like the writings of archaeologists from a long time ago. So the very first kind of people coming to New Zealand, and I got caught up in this last night because. On one of the articles, next to the article about the Otago Institute meeting, there was an article about someone who was coming out and he was very interested in studying the moa bones. And I was saying to my husband, it's so crazy. Like they come here and while they're driving a whole bunch of species, like the Europeans here, while they're driving a whole bunch of species of birds extinct, like the huia bird, that they just like literally catch them, make them feathers. Like there's just no reason for driving the huia extinct. But they're not so concerned about the ones that are still there that they could have actually done something about. But they put all this effort into studying the moa bones. And I was like, it was just bonkers. But I mean, we're still doing that today. So that's the human condition. But it's interesting because you can see the lens of society and how those archaeologists thought about the world, and that being kind of reflected in the things that they were saying and how they were thinking about the things that they'd found and the stories that were telling about it. And so you do kind of wonder how, like, it must be kind of interesting to kind of do like the history of archaeology, like thinking about how the people thought about things.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems a bit meta, but I don't know if that's part of what you do or not. But it's interesting in the New Zealand context because, you know, we've had, like, obviously we've had Indigenous Māori here for, you know, hundreds of years. And then there's this point where Europeans come and then that was kind of 200 years ago now. So then a lot of how we think about society and how we treat other people and has all changed in that 200 years. So it's quite interesting to read those original readings of those. I don't know if you find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that you can see the change through time and the questions that people ask and find interesting, because people are always kind of responding to society at the time.
Yeah.
You can see changes in method, theory, techniques that are used, although it's funny, like a lot some of the pure archaeological techniques haven't changed. Just we're still digging with shovels and brushes.
Yeah.
Toothbrushes sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Trowels.
But I mean, I guess that's the basic. Like fundamentally, you want to get the thing, see what's there, and it's still true that, you know, the whatever is there, and then soil and dirt and dust comes down and it gradually forms layers, and newer stuff is generally on top of older stuff, so you get some sort of time sequence. I guess carbon dating had a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely.
That was kind of a big jump.
Yeah, that had a massive influence. So 1950s, Willard Libby coming up and recognising the radiocarbon clock had a massive influence, because all of a sudden we can date when organisms died in the past and sample those remains of those organisms, and then basically approximate when these layers of deposition formed.
Yeah.
And before that time, I mean, that technique, radiocarbon dating, is just like, I mean, I call it the workhorse of New Zealand archaeological chronologies and international chronologies, if you're talking about the last 50,000 years. But you know, we take that for granted now as archaeologists.
It's crazy, isn't it?
You know, 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
It was just a dream.
Well, it was just a dream, and people were the main methods of dating was looking at those layers, those strata, analysing the stratigraphy, and just doing
trying to match them up in different places,
and then just doing massive material cultural studies to try and look at changes in form and function and try and interpret.
Try and say this shard of pottery is sort of the same as that one over there, so it must be the same.
This culture.
Yeah.
It's the green pottery culture.
Yeah. I was thinking the Lapita pottery.
Yeah.
I don't know, it sounds like it's a cool word. I don't know why I remember that name, but anyway.
Well, no, Lapita pottery, that's a very famous material culture in the Pacific, and the people who made made those pots are the ancestors of all of people in Polynesia, and Aotearoa and New Zealand Māori. The people who made Lapita pottery are the ancestors of them in sort of the Western Pacific.
Yeah, nice. Anyway, so talk us through community archaeology. So what's that as a subdiscipline?
So community archaeology came about, you know, we've just been talking about change through time and theory and methods and questions. This way of approaching archaeology sort of came about in the 80s and 90s originally. And basically archaeologists recognised that often we're studying other people's pasts.
Right.
And there can be a tendency for these outside experts coming in and telling communities about their own histories and being positioned as outside experts.
Yeah.
And so this wave, well, this new approach of community, it's no longer new, but community archaeology just came about, and it's basically a way of sharing power.
Right.
Between people who have spent their careers doing archaeology and descendant communities, or with people who have strong connections to the archaeological material you're working on.
Yeah.
So you're basically doing archaeology for, with, or by those communities. And you do that for several reasons. One, to step back and not necessarily try and play that role of the expert. Two, to empower people. So basically share that afford that sovereignty to descendant communities to have decision-making power over their pasts and those taonga that remain from those pasts. And I had another thought, but that's gone. So we'll stick with those two.
it's quite. Yeah, I was going to say it's quite interesting because, like, you're talking about material remains there, and quite often it is taonga. Things like material bits of fabric or stone implements or weapons or cooking utensils or something, but then often it is also human remains, and so that has a very different kind of context to it. I imagine when you're dealing with kind of the ancestors of the people that are there. I mean, that we don't we kind of don't like to think of it like that, but it's like digging up a grave site.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of the difference in time as to how long ago they were there and whether they were, buried on purpose or whether it, how it kind of came about. And I guess that's kind of a complex situation. I wondered if you felt like talking us through some of those intricacies there and how that works.
Yeah, heritage. I mean, koiwi, dealing with human remains, is a particularly there's a lot of sensitivities around that for the reasons you've just laid out. But a lot of these tensions or these complexities do play out in many forms dealing with cultural heritage in general. There's a lot of politics where it often, heritage is played out, the decisions we make and how we manage these human remains, these people, how we manage these taonga, these objects that are handed down from previous generations and these places as well. These are all decisions that are political. They're always responding to things in the present.
And societal as well.
And societal, yeah.
So what our the way that you display your respect for the people and the objects and the human remains is kind of dependent a little bit on the society that you're coming from and how you're coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So human remains, as you say, is a particularly sensitive material. The remains of someone's ancestors, if not your own, and so in many ways, I mean, it's because of that. There's a lot of other layers of complexity in how we deal with them. So, for example, if you come across human remains when a development's going on, so for a new subdivision, you basically have to stop works and the local mana whenua are contacted, so their kaitiaki, their people can come out and alongside the police, alongside potentially Heritage New Zealand, which is a Crown agency, they will come out to decide and identify alongside the archaeologists whether this is a cold case.
Yeah, because I was just going to say,
recent murder victim.
Yeah, it's really hard to, when you start, and particularly if you're just going out for a subdivision or something, right? So it's not a place that you've as an archaeologist chosen to go and say, okay, I think there's something here because of the way the land is sculptured or whatever. Yep. That's a whole different type of archaeology. Yeah. But if you're going out where there's, you're there because there's a subdivision going in, you have no idea what may or may not be there, right?
Sometimes you do. Sometimes there will be... So we have a database of New Zealand archaeological sites. Right. This is called ArcSite, and it's managed by the New Zealand Archaeological Association. And there's over 70,000 recorded sites.
So that's if someone's found some object or no?
Yeah.
How does something get to be an archaeological, to be listed as an arc site there?
So there'll be some material evidence. So it might, for example, it could be...
Someone's found an adze or...
Yeah, it could be a single object that's found on the surface, or it could be the foundations of a building that's now in rubble, or it could be a pa, it could be shell midden, any archaeological material that can be recorded by an archaeologist as a site, and it will go on the database. And so a common practice is for archaeologists to review this database before any works. If they're doing cultural resource management, monitoring earthworks for a development, they'll, before the spades hit the ground, you basically know as much as you can, do lots of background research.
But it's possible that there is an archaeological site underneath, but just nothing's come out, or no one's found the thing that's come out, right? So
absolutely.
it's perfectly possible to turn up in just looks like a field. It's not on arc site.
Yes.
No one thinks there's anything there. It's just a routine, basically tick the boxes, and then And then what happens? You dig a hole?
Yeah, so if earthworks start and there's lots of layers here.
It's archaeology. There's
pun.
always lots of layers.
Pun intended. Puns should always be intended in my book. Hypothetically, in this situation, say there's a subdivision and there's some earthworks are going on to build some housing platforms, and the guys on the digger come across some archaeological evidence. Maybe it's some like a buried rua kumara, like an old storage pit,
right?
Or maybe there's some human remains, some koiwi in this case. So works would have to stop, and depending on whether or not they have an archaeological authority, which is like a permit,
right? Yeah.
To modify an archaeological site, modify or destroy an archaeological site.
Gosh.
Then
Surprised you can get those.
Yeah, so it's a process you apply to Heritage New Zealand, Pohere Taonga, so they're the Crown agency that manages that process. If you have a permit or an authority from them, then you will already have like a process to follow,
right?
Having your project archaeologist come out, record it,
right? So it doesn't mean you can just destroy it willy nilly. It means you've already recognised that there's likely to be something here, and someone will have to come out and inspect it and sort out what's happening and how important it is, and if there's koiwi. And
it depends on the conditions of the authority that they roll out,
right?
Or that permit. So, for example, I don't want to speak for Heritage New Zealand, so it's a public notice for everyone who has any questions about this. You should reach out to Heritage New Zealand for advice.
And we can put that link in the episode description as well.
But I can just speak generally. Part of this is informed by my experience because I used to work for Heritage New Zealand as well for a few years. But so common conditions on those authorities is to have like an archaeologist to monitor earthworks.
Right.
So they'll be standing by.
Oh, so they actually can see things. Because I was just thinking, like, if you're just a digger driver, maybe stuff would come up and you wouldn't recognise it. Like, obviously, if it's something big or something obvious, but a lot of things might just look like, until they're cleaned up, they might just look like a stone or a stick or whatever.
That's why people you kind of go to university for a number of years to be able to identify stuff.
That's interesting.
But some forms of archaeology are ephemeral. They might be different colours of brown.
Right. Okay.
Different layers of dirt, for example. But that might relate to different occupations. But sometimes it's very obvious. So
right.
It might be.
I imagine there's like the whole kind of scale of difference there between like super obvious and super subtle.
Yeah.
And kind of the thing I always wonder is, how do you know what's important? How do you know what's important enough that you go, okay, no, actually you can't build here? This might be completely outside your scope. Got off on a rabbit hole there.
Definitely not talking about community archaeology. But
come back to community archaeology. So at that point, so basically, if you're building, so you have the archaeologist basically who's there working as part of the crew, or they're called in, or they're an independent observer somehow. Yeah. And then if something is found, then you get the community involved, and then that's when you're kind of doing community ecology. Am I right there?
Community archaeology. Maybe that might be one way to do it. Probably that way would be...
And that's more of a responsive way rather than...
I wouldn't advise that way.
Yeah.
Because the purpose of doing community archaeology, and it's a fairly loose term. It's not like black and white whether something is community archaeology and it's not. But you can have sort of values that you bring to your work to try and bring the community with you.
Yeah.
But usually... to do archaeology with or for the community, that relationship has been built up before any works have started.
Yeah,
so that's
having that long-term kind of ongoing relationship is obviously the best way to do it, because then when you rock up and say, hey, I've got this, then they know who you are.
Yeah, and you've already got a process to follow.
You've already kind of...
You're not just trying to respond on the fly.
Yeah.
Because, communities who aren't necessarily... being paid to undertake any of that advisory work or make decisions about cultural heritage have to do it outside of their
normal workday
jobs.
And it's kind of the same group of people that are being called on all the time.
Potentially, yeah.
If there's lots of people trying to develop things in lots of different places.
Yeah, I mean, different communities, throughout New Zealand, for example, different hapu, different iwi around the country will have different experiences depending on like land use within their rohe, within their area. So, for example, if they're living in Auckland, their rohe is in Auckland or Central Dunedin or Christchurch, any area where there's lots of growth and development going on, there's a lot more demand for their time.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I can see that.
Versus if you're in a rural area, it might be quite different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, if you're in the South Island, like there's a lot of land, and I guess kaitahu are quite spread thin over that land in some ways now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that.
Just the population. Like there'll be a lot of archaeological sites that you've got a few people that are being called on to say something about, which I can imagine could be a full-time job. Yeah. Which is, I guess, why, we had a really great interview a couple of months ago, episode 106 with Rachel Wesley on indigenising archaeology, and that was actually really interesting. So anyone who's listening to this, go back and find that episode. And since you finished with this one, obviously, don't stop listening to this. Zach's very interesting in his own right. And then go back and listen to that one. Yeah, so...
But there is like a massive, on that point, there is a massive overlap between community archaeology and indigenising or indigenous archaeology. In many ways you can undertake, community archaeology with indigenous communities or with Māori communities might look the same.
Right.
I suppose it's a bit of a spectrum depending on like the leadership within the indigenous community.
Right.
And whether there's like expertise, like for example the team lead might be from the community.
Right.
In which case the decisions, the whole project's led by them.
Yeah.
And that might be, it might be different to other forms of community archaeology where it might be a partnership relationship or it might be, it can look quite different in different cases.
And I guess there's also, we're talking about indigenous archaeology here, but there's also, there's 200 and something years of European history here in New Zealand now. So are you also doing some archaeology like in the goldfields or in those sorts of early European settlers here as well?
I am not currently. However, that we do have people in our program who have either in the past or are doing research with descendant communities from these early settlements as well.
Right. Because I'm saying European, but there could be Chinese as well. There's
for
a
example,
huge Chinese community here around the goldfields in Dunedin as well.
Yeah, for example, in Lawrence, there's a long-term project with Professor Richard Walter and others from our program have been involved with the Lawrence Chinese camp.
I might try and get someone from them in later on in the show. Because it's kind of interesting to think about. So what's your main field site? What's where you mainly work? What's your day like? Tell us some cool stories from the field.
So, a current project that I've got going on is with communities up in Aotearoa, which is on Te Taihawauru or Waikato, so the west coast of Waikato.
Okay. That's a long way from Dunedin.
Yeah, you can get further, but sometimes it is a long way. But I did my PhD. Well, I connect there through my family as well, so I whakapapa to Waikato. But I also did my PhD up at Waikato. I studied in the Faculty of Māori and Indigenous Studies up there, before coming down here 4 years ago for this position. So, I've long-term relationships and ongoing professional work with communities up there.
Right.
But anyway, this particular project is with 4 marae around the harbour. Aotea Harbour is not very well known, but just north of Kawhia, or between Kawhia and Raglan, if people know the area. And so, like many other places around the country, there's heaps of cultural heritage places, heaps of archaeological sites that are really significant, not only because they have the potential to tell us more about the past through archaeology, but also because they're like they're tohu, they're points in the landscape that give descendants identity and belonging, and are part of people. These heritage places. but a lot of them are coastal and they're eroding away due to climate change, and land use practices that can affect them.
Yeah.
Development, forestry, farming works.
And even I don't know if this is in the North Island, but here, like deforestation of and the river and the way that sediment is coming out and the erosion and how that's laying down sand on the coast after the river mouth and how that's then washing away, and that all has a big influence. And then that mixed with storms, because I think one of the things that people don't often think, doesn't come straight to mind with climate change, is it's not just sea level rising, but it's the intensity and the frequency of big storms and storm surge events. And of course they have these huge erosion things on beaches and that's, we've seen that in the North Island with the number of big cyclone and big rain, big heavy weather events that we've had over the last couple of years. And of course that's that intensity, that's what climate change does. It puts energy into the system, and if you put heat is just energy and you put energy into a system, things get bigger and heavier rain, stronger winds, all that sort of stuff, and then that has a flow-on effect, I guess, even towards archaeology. What sort of timescales are you looking at there with those sites?
Like what period are they from?
What period are they from?
So far we've done one. This is a pretty new project. It's only been going for a couple of years, but we've done one excavation of a site called Poerua on the south side of Aotea Harbour, and that site was chosen because all of the marae partners identified it as a site that was eroding away. It's actively eroding. Big cliff, and it's falling into the sea, and you can see deposits of archaeological material exposed on the slope, on the scarp.
So it's kind of an urgent bit there, because if you don't look at it and get information from it now, it's going to be destroyed. Yeah.
So in that way, it's we sort of view it as a kaitiakitanga practice, or a kaitiaki practice, whereby we're trying to care for these places and in this case excavate them to gather information before it's gone, so that we can pass on those stories about these places. Because archaeology can be woven with mātauranga Māori, with kōrero tukuiho, with oral histories, in ways that are still being realised. But there's often so much agreement between these worlds, and if we do archaeology with communities, by sharing that power and deciding how the research is done, what research questions are done, where we store the information, etc., data sovereignty discussions, that means it's a safe process for the descendant community to engage with, and the information that can come from it is enriching and it's relevant. So, for example, we're doing excavations, and everybody on site was pretty much from the area, and everyone could speak Te Reo Māori, and so it was like a full immersion at different points in the excavation. Just only the Māori language being spoken, which was a first for me, hearing that on site.
That's pretty cool, really, isn't it? That's that is kind of a sea change. In how, and I guess it must impact the whole feel of how the dig is conducted. With the practice of the way people are and how they kind of just the tikanga, the how you go about your day, basically, as much as anything. It kind of imbues everything with a kind of different way of...
So it's kaumātua led by tikanga, led by karakia, and also trying to engage rangatahi Māori into those places as well. So just to, we talked about inspiring the next generation and how people get into archaeology if it's not in schools. This is sort of a very small way of doing that, where we're just showing this opportunity, this new way of thinking about these places. And so people, were doing the excavation, and I was sort of just facilitating that process, which is a crazy experience. I didn't really think about it, but it was kind of like running a field school.
But it's really great because you've got engaged people, right, who want to learn how to do it right, so that they're not damaging things, but also you're learning stuff there as well, because you're learning from them at the same time. So it's kind of this kind of mutual, and it's, when you've got, I guess, respect and communication that's going, and you've that's your foundation, then it just seems a lot easier because you kind of have the knowledge that you're there with, permission and like informed. They know exactly what's happening because they're on site and they're doing it. And if something's not how they want it done, then it's going to be really obvious straight away. It's like there's no like apologising for having done something 6 months ago because you get stopped straight away.
Yeah. And
it's that I guess not really stopped, but it's that kind of instant feedback mechanism because people are there and engaged with the process. And
it's partnership with the marae, and so it's also not necessarily getting feedback from them as if I'm the one running it. It's actually sharing the decisions.
Like everything's just happening there in a sort of organic way.
Yeah, and we're discussing how we respond to certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason of why we were there was a decision by the community that we wanted to do this excavation. It came out of a wānanga about archaeology, me just talking about what archaeology
So did you approach them or did they approach you?
I approached them through one of the kaumatua, Pizza Tingaru, who is also like one of the other key leaders on the project as well, from a tikanga lens. So we sort of ran this wānanga together to talk about archaeology, but also talk about how it could be done with tikanga and relating it to kōrero, tukuiho, etc. So it was basically just an open wānanga for people to engage with. It was funny because, I sent out some, pānui newsletters out to the community and had phone calls and everything before it even started. But I had some people say at the end, that we thought they were coming to hear about dinosaurs, even after all of that. So it's an ongoing misunderstanding.
I can see that. But what? Yeah. So you've done some of the work there now in the field.
Yeah, so it's ongoing. Yeah.
So what sort of age are you talking about there?
Right, yeah,
now?
I still haven't answered your question. Drum roll. Well, I haven't got radiocarbon dates yet.
Right.
But we will get it dated. But it's certainly pre-contact. Well, most likely pre-contact, at least the most shallow layers, but we don't know how early it goes. But I mean, it's Māori occupation, so it could be any time between around 1300 CE until maybe 1800.
Right, so it's that sort of 500-year bracket. And you can get really fine with carbon dating now, can't you? It's quite amazing. Like what sort of...
Yeah, I mean, if you're...
April 2nd.
Sometimes. If you're... So you can apply different techniques. So some of the most precise dates have come out from a project that my PhD was a part of. It was a Marsden-funded project at the University of Waikato. And we were basically trying to understand quite broadly the whakapapa of pā tawhito, so fortified settlements, understand when they were constructed, why they were constructed, particularly in the Waikato region.
Right.
And so we studied these particular type of pā, which are wetland pā, where they were constructed, often, on the side of a lake or a river, and sometimes actual islands had been constructed. So it would have been a swampy area.
So you sort of made it into a moat, basically.
They made an island by quarrying sands and silts from a surrounding hill.
Sounds like a lot of work, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of labour that goes into a lot of these places. And then they fortified them with like wooden palisades, tu wata wata.
Yeah.
And
which is the classic kind of like kids' book picture of a fortified pā that you
exactly.
imagine.
The wooden wall. And so because of these inorganic environments and these wetlands, the organic remains can preserve really, really well.
Right.
And so in these cases, we had the actual remains of these posts that were still preserved, which is very, very rare. These posts would have stood several metres high, and sometimes they went several metres into the ground.
Yeah.
And so when we lifted them out, this was in partnership with mana whenua in the different regions we were working. The the preservation of these posts was absolutely incredible. It was as if it had been carved that day. You could see the individual adze marks. In some cases, we could even identify particular adzes based on their shape.
Yeah. And you can see the rings in the tree.
Yeah.
Count how old that post was when it was cut down.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting to the dating thing. I'm just talking on. So when you can...
I would say we've only got 4 minutes left.
Okay. If you combine dendrochronology, which is tree ring dating, with radiocarbon dating, you can basically get much more precise dates.
Right.
Sometimes down to a year if it's a Cody tree. Wow. But most of the time, radiocarbon dating, if you're not doing that wiggle matching, is... I
love how the technical term wiggle matching.
Yeah.
I just love that it's called wiggle matching.
All to do with the calibration curve, etc.
I mean, they do wiggle matching when they do it with pollen lines as well.
Yeah.
And ice cores as well.
Yeah.
It's all called wiggle matching.
Yeah.
But I just love it. It just sounds so scientific.
Yeah. But
Sorry,
if people want to learn more about radiocarbon dating, do a little plug. Check out The Past Before Us, which is a YouTube channel I've got, or thepastbeforeus.com.
The Past Before Us.
Yeah, a website.
Cool.
It's a translation of Ngā Wā o Mo, which is like the past before us. And talk about radiocarbon dating and a bunch of other things in blog and video form. So
that's really cool. Awesome. Hey, so that's your big kind of PhD type thing, and when you go in there. And what was the dates? What were the dates?
I can't talk about. Well, can I? I don't know.
Oh, is it not published yet?
It's not published yet.
Oh, okay.
There is a recent.
Oh well, we don't want to get in trouble with anyone.
One of the pa was dated before our work started. It was a pilot study at Ōtāwhao Pa, so that was associated with Waikato Iwi. And so it was 1769 plus or minus 6 years. So that's pretty precise. That's very
pretty precise, eh?
1769
plus or minus, because that's kind of just when Cook's discovering. I'm doing air quotes there. When he's arriving.
69 is one of the years he was here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, eh?
Yeah, and so because we get very precise radiocarbon dates through that process, that allows us to relate it to whakapapa, to events and oral traditions in a way that we could never before do.
Yeah.
So that was one of the main.
And I guess oral tradition, like if you've got a really complete record, you can just count like how long these people lived and then add them all up and cross-reference them across. And
so you
can actually make quite a good timeline there, right?
Yeah, so we developed a new method, basically treating whakapapa as a chronological network.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not. It seems...
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people have tried it with the Bible, which doesn't work so well, folks, because, the whole Methuselah being... I don't know, what was he, 800 years on? I think there's some lost in translation there about the words that they were using for years.
Yeah, so we basically developed this new approach that allows us to estimate birth dates and event ranges and say how precise we can be for different periods in time when we're trying to relate it to radiocarbon dates.
Oh, that sounds cool. I'd love to read about that. Yeah. Is that all on your blog as well?
I haven't written a blog about it, but there is an article out there that we wrote.
We might have you come back and talk about that later.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds really cool. I'm interested in all that sort of stuff.
That's good.
Honestly. Anyway, so you're not doing any actual field work here in Dunedin or
Well,
Otago?
Next year I'm running the field school with Dr Charles Radcliffe.
Wow.
And so I can't say where we'll go. We've had many
but somewhere here in Otago.
Somewhere here, a local. So our fourth year students will have their first experience on the trail.
Wow.
We'll be doing a community-based project as well. So,
in
the last few years, people may have seen recent articles in ODT and National Geographic, with Moeraki Marae. With Tūtaka Hikura, which is the area they are doing their excavations.
Yeah.
Check that out, and we might be doing something similar.
And of course, Otako's got a long history of doing various. I guess they're called community archaeology.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that they called them that when they were doing them, but it seems to fall under that umbrella. But that cool waka from out there on Otako Peninsula.
Yeah,
and,
so Rachel's work,
you
guest you had earlier, she was on that site doing that excavation.
Yeah.
So,
that was really cool. And it was interesting because she, when we were talking about how she got into archaeology, she was saying similar. Her grandfather took her to the Otago Museum and she just loved the whole Tangata Whenua gallery that's there, which I think might be going to be They've just done the Pacifica.
Yeah.
They've redone the Pacifica Gallery. Yeah. It's not quite open yet, but they're almost ready to open it there at the Ōtākau Museum, Tuhura there. And I mean, that's going to be great, right? Because that was kind of a bit dated, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that's the awesome thing about archaeology, because it's like, if you're interested in history, it's like history, but it's just tangible. You can actually touch it and see it. And when you're doing an excavation, you're often the first person that's touched it. It's amazing.
The first person you've touched them. I did a little bit of archaeology with Professor Charles Hyam in Southeast Asia when I was an undergrad. And we were digging, and I found this thing that was perfectly round. I was like, oh my God, that is clay. It's perfectly round. I was like, Charles, is it? Like, I mean, it's obvious. And he was like, yeah, it's I was so excited because this is like something that's like, I don't know, it was a Bronze Age site. It's just so old. And I was just like, oh my God, this is a clay pellet that someone has made, and it's been in the ground for thousands of years, and I'm the first person to touch it. I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
I still have that
I was so, like, I can't explain how excited I was to touch this thing. Like, I was the first person to be touching it in just so long. And he was like, yeah, there's a whole bunch, and just put it over there with the other ones. There must have been a tree there way back when that had birds in it, and the kids would fling slingshot pellets at the birds to knock them down to eat them, and they're just underneath the tree. Year after year, there was just tens and tens and tens of these, and then eventually it built up, so there was a lot of them. So there's a whole pile of these. But I was absolutely stoked with my clay ball. Anyway, that's my story.
Well, going back to the community archaeology, that's another layer of that is. Imagine that connection that you felt, but for someone who has like a direct connection to that place and those.
It was really crazy because I should stop because we've run out of time. But where we were, the people who lived there now had no connection at all because of the time difference and the way that populations had shifted through. So it was quite strange because they just kind of the people that, because we were actually digging right in a village. Anyway, I'll get Charles to come on and talk about that at some later time. Yeah. I have to play the outro. Thank you very much for tuning in to the OI podcast. Thank you very much for Zac for coming along. It's been fantastic. And
you've been listening to the OI podcast, the shout out for the arts, sciences and Mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.